So, Bill Bennett, what is the harm in what the New York Times and other newspapers did last week in publishing their stories?
Well, there are a lot of people who are saying there's a lot of harm. Ask the Undersecretary of the Treasury, Stuart Levy, who was very upset about it. Ask the Secretary of the Treasury, departing Secretary, Secretary Snow. Ask Tom Kean and Lee Hamilton, the co-chairman of the 9/11 Commission. They're not exactly Bush camp followers. Tom Kean said in an interview, he said, a very successful program, which has been very successful in the war against terror, has been lost, compromised because of this.
Well, isn't it true that, in fact, this program was hinted at in the 9/11 Commission report, and both NBC analyst Roger Cressy, who is a former national security official, and his fellow former NSC officer Richard Clark said that no harm was done. Let's look at what they wrote in the New York Times about this. Wildly overblown are the Bush administration's protests that the press revelations about the financial monitoring program may tip off the terrorists. They want the public to believe that it had not already occurred to every terrorist on the planet that his telephone was probably monitored and his international bank transfers subject to scrutiny. How gullible does the administration take the American citizenry to be? Bill Sapphire,
well,
does the press
is that it?
have an obligation?
Is that it for me?
No. Stand by. I want to ask Bill Sapphire to weigh in on this.
On this one, I think they did the right thing. Here we are on Independence Day weekend, 230 years ago, celebrating what was the resistance to a king who said, we're going to hang you for treason. And here we have a Long Island congressman, happened to be named King, who's saying treason and put these reporters in jail. I think there's a big fundamental thing going on here now, across the board, of get the press, get the media.
I don't understand the logic that says all of a sudden they've discovered something they didn't know. September 24th, 2001, President Bush walked into the Rose Garden and announced, we've developed a strategy. We're putting banks and financial institutions around the world on notice. We'll work with their governments, freeze or block terrorist money. We're going to work with the United Nations, the EU, the G8, to follow this money.
What Bill Bennett would say to you is that they didn't know about the so-called SWIFT program. They didn't know the specifics. Bill.
Well, where did we think that they think
well,
we're looking for?
Why did they get caught in 2003 rather than 2 years earlier when the program was announced? I know we have an air marshals program, but I don't know which marshal is on which plane. Yeah, we established a democracy. We oppose a king. We have a president of the United States. The founders, you want to go back 200 years, James Wilson said the press will be free. No prior restraint on the press. However, when they are irresponsible, they should be held accountable. Now, you put Richard Clark up against Lee Hamilton and Tom Kean. I'm sorry, Richard Clark has a thing against this administration. That's pretty clearly known. Tom Kean said the details of a valuable program were lost. Lee Hamilton said the same thing. Jack Murtha, these again are not cat's paws of this administration, begged the New York Times not to run this piece.
Andrea, the administration, every time there's a national security story they don't want published, they say it will damage national security. But they, for one thing, they've never given us any proof. They say it will stop cooperation, but the fact is the countries of the world understand that they have to cooperate on counterterrorism, and just like the banks that did not pull out of the system, other countries continue to cooperate because it's a common problem.
They're pulling out from the system? I don't think so.
Dana, let me point out that the Washington Post, your newspaper, was behind the others, but also did publish this story. And a story you wrote last year, disclosing the secret CIA prisons, won the Pulitzer Prize, but it also led to William Bennett, sitting here, saying that 3 reporters who won the Pulitzer Prize, you for that story and Jim Risen and others for another story, were, quote, not worthy of an award, but rather worthy of jail. Dana, how do you plead?
Well, it's not a crime to publish classified information, and this is one of the things Mr. Bennett keeps telling people that it is, but in fact, there are some narrow categories of information you can't publish. Certain signals, communications, intelligence, the names of covert operatives, and nuclear secrets. Now, why isn't it a crime? I mean, some people would like to make casino gambling a crime, but it is not a crime. Why isn't it not a crime? Because the framers of the Constitution wanted to protect the press so that they could perform a basic role in government oversight, and you can't do that. Look at the criticism that the press got after Iraq that we did not do our job on WMD, and that was all in a classified arena. To do a better job, and I believe that we should have done a better job, we would have again found ourselves in the arena.
We have now had a steady drumbeat from the White House all week about this.
So the point is the tension between the media and the government is long-standing, and that's to be expected. And in fact, many of the people getting up to lambast the media now are also people that we talk to with our stories, to vet our stories, to say what is it in the story that you're most concerned about.
You need to hold things back.
To hold things back. In the prison story, we talked with the administration. No one in the administration asked us not to publish the story. In fact, people said, we know you have your job to do, but please don't publish the names of the countries where the prisons are located. So there is a reasoned dialogue that often goes on between the media and the government behind all this.
That was not the case with the NSA surveillance.
That's correct. Can I say something?
Please.
Because I'm being quoted and talked about. I'm right here. I'm right here. I can make my own case. All right. No, you got three people on one side. You got me on the other side. Let me just state my position. It's not time to break out the champagne and the Pulitzers. This is not about politics. Not from my perspective. It's about the United States of America and the security of the United States of America. The difference is the government was elected. People may not like the Bush administration, but they were elected, and they are entitled to due consideration on these matters. The American people, in fact, believe in a free press, as I do, and I don't believe in prior restraint of the press. But the American people are saying, if you listen to them in very, very large and consistent numbers, and an awful lot of people across the board are saying this, is 4 times now, 4 times in 8 months. Dana Priest's story, the National Surveillance Security Agency monitoring story, the USA Today story about data mining. Oh, sorry, they tell us on Friday. We maybe got that wrong. Our sources were wrong.
Wait a second. The story wasn't wrong. What they apologized for is that one of the companies or two of the companies did not have contracts.
Big part of the story.
But that the information was still being...
The program was still valid.
Big part of the story they got wrong.
Story,
all right, well, check your facts when you're running front page. When they're running front page, USA Today needs to check its facts. And now this story on the SWIFT. And people are saying, is there a competition here?
Which no one has denied.
No one has denied it, except the people at Treasury and, again, Tom Kean are saying this thing has now destroyed the capacity of our program. Again, the difference is the government of the United States was elected to protect our security. It isn't always in the service of security to leak. Katharine Graham, in the New York Times today, Katharine Graham cites a very interesting example in 1983 where she said the press went too far. It reported about secret communications between Syrian terrorists and their Iranian bosses, which led later, she said, to the deaths of 240 Marines. This can happen. We are in war. This is classified.
You talking on behalf of all the American people. Because
I'm talking about a lot of the American people.
When my stories ran, I received many people thanking me because they thought that they went, including
you don't want to put this to an opinion poll. You do not want to do this on an opinion poll.
Including active duty 4-star generals. Some people think that the administration has gone too far in some of the counterterrorism measures they've taken, and some of the things that are revealing are creating a debate that could not have happened before.
Yeah, and shutting down of prisons, and countries that say...
The prisons have been moved. They have not been shut down. That's a big...
Bill Sapphire, weigh in here.